We know from many of the masters over time, Wallace Wattles, Albert Einstein, Ben Franklin, and so many others, that there's an unformed substance up there in the ethers waiting for us to use our thoughts to create something. Our thoughts create reality. It's an exact science, and failure is impossible. If this is the case, why do we hear so much about surrendering and destiny and allowing? Are we supposed to be deliberate creators, or are we supposed to let it go and let it flow? In this video, we'll be talking about allowing versus the idea of exercising our intention for our specific desires. Allowing versus intention. This podcast is all about helping you with your spiritual growth so you can overcome obstacles and manifest your destiny to crystallize and materialize any dream, basically, to have success on life's journey. It's all about getting unstuck by unlocking your hidden power. So let's get started.
Hi there and welcome. My name is Remy, like Do Re Mi. I'm a best-selling author and creator of the Get Unstuck Revolution. I help extraordinary women just like you dissolve the obstacles in your path so you can bring success to you. Now let's get started with today's video.
Okay, let me jump off the screen here and switch to my laptop. A lot of us misunderstand the point of allowing or surrendering to what is as being passive rather than inviting it to enhance our capacity to live an intentional life of well-being and growth. This hidden power of being able to use these different energies can help us through a challenge and on to success every single time. If you'd like to see success in full abundance along life's journey, and if you're wanting to tap into a greater knowingness and align with the higher consciousness of your infinite self, instead of the lower ego thinking that pushes success away, then this is for you. It's time to be unabashedly, unapologetically, happily untethered to ego thinking. It's time to align with the higher energies of our soul's path instead. This episode is for you if you wonder, where do we draw the line between creating and letting go? Does destiny trump our ability to create? Is it a greater force? And does the power of intention call in resistance? Yes, these episodes are about how to find your hidden power when you want to transform challenges into successes. I like to call it the audacity of alchemy. Because when we're feeling stuck, it's never the situation that has us stuck, it's our energy that's become stuck in anxiety, overwhelm, doubts, worries, frustrations, indecision, and even anger. And often, this is because of a spiritual injury that we've experienced, some kind of a hidden trauma. So it isn't the pain of our situation, it's the pain of not being connected in the natural energy of who we really are, of being connected to that magical part of us that's a creative vibrational being who can use positive energies to create what we want and bring it into physical manifestation. We can allow our manifestations to materialize and not get stuck in the negative vibrations that block them. These positive energies that we talk about so much are where we find the magic of alchemy, because our choice of frequency, our choice of those positive thoughts and emotions can change the course of our journey. And I get a lot of questions about surrendering to what's meant to be versus intentional creation. The energy of surrendering or allowing seems very passive, while the energy of creating seems very active. So, what are we supposed to do? Create what we want or surrender to destiny? Well, think of it this way. We have ebbs and flows in life. The ocean waves come in and then they flow out again. We breathe in and then we exhale. So, what do you think about the concept that there's a time to create and a time to surrender? Or do you think some of us just fit better in the state of surrender because it's more natural for us, while others just fit better in our type A personalities and always creating things to go a certain way? Interesting to ponder, right? All right, then. While you ponder that, let's go just a little bit deeper and talk about a foundation. What kind of foundation do we need underneath intentional creation or surrendering? Do we need a foundation of balance? There are some people who feel like we're all striving for balance, and others who say that balance is impossible. On this planet, we're working with energy, and energy can be very fluid. Now, I've talked about this before, that the universe doesn't allow status quo. We're either in an increase or a decrease. We're either expanding or contracting. We're either ebbing or we're flowing. And by default, if we aren't expanding, then we're contracting. Make sense? And so, what a lot of people do is they fight for status quo. We want things to feel normal. But as we fight for status quo, it isn't long before we start contracting again. And on the flip side of that, a lot of people don't want the status quo. We enjoy growing and expanding and expressing our gifts in the world. We're always moving the bar so that our sense of normal moves as we grow and evolve. And this way, we don't feel like we're ever going backwards. So just take a moment and think about which of these categories you fit in. Are you one who fights for status quo because you like things to feel easy and normal and level? Or are you one who likes to grow and expand? I'm not saying there's a right or wrong answer, by the way. But if this is making sense to you, then would it also make sense that for some people, when they strive for balance, they may not realize that their soul is actually craving growth. And so we get these imbalances that can make us very uncomfortable because either something is very wrong, like we just got a boatload of work dumped in our lap that only a superhuman could get through, or maybe we're feeling imbalanced because we're going through some phase of spiritual growth that's super uncomfortable, or maybe a little bit of both. So it's a little bit of both. We do want to grow and expand, and at the same time, we have a natural tendency to want to stay balanced as we reset ourselves to a new normal. But this episode isn't really about finding balance in life. I'm just pointing out that for some of us, we feel a little bit untethered or ungrounded at times. And so we like to have a foundation of balance as we move throughout life. We like to have a foundation of balance. And with that, I'd like you to consider the possibility of the energies of surrender and intentional creating working together. Imagine a seesaw. Sometimes it'll tip one way toward intentional creation, and other times it'll tip the other way toward surrender. It's a balance of energies. Okay, so let's talk a bit more about this balance of energies. The yin and yang of living requires us to cooperate with the idea of surrender and intentional creation together, because one without the other leads to an imbalance. If we always breathe in and we never breathe out, what happens? If the ocean's waves only move in one direction, what happens? People who move into a place of perpetual letting go can begin to lose all responsibility in life. And of course, we have the monks sitting up on the mountaintops and praying for the planet as they've surrendered all their earthly possessions, just like we have the hardcore, action-oriented people with intention to create industrial or technology revolutions. But for most of us, we want this foundation of balance. We want to incorporate both surrender and intentional creation. So we can talk about this push-pull in our own individual life, and we can also see how it works in the world at large. And we even can see how it works in nature. So I'm not saying that all people should perpetually let go any more than I'm saying that all people should have crazy good intention in pushing their life forward. I'm simply asking you to consider these concepts for yourself and what works for you. Okay. So consider the person who stops being intentional about their life and are always in this letting go or allowing state. They can easily get pulled in by the intentions of others and end up going through experiences that don't match their true desires or their potential for creating and expressing beautiful things in the world. And at the other end of the spectrum, consider the person who doesn't know how to surrender or allow. Would they become disconnected from universal intelligence and guidance? Would they have no stream of consciousness from their inner being and find themselves at the mercy of ego thinking? Would they end up forcing life and trying to influence others into disharmony? Something to think about. All right. Let's move on and let's talk about the interplay between two individuals, like two partners. or two friends or two family members. We're bringing it down from the world at large down into the interplay between two individuals. If we drill it down, how does the yin and yang of surrender and intentional creation work in the human dynamic at this level? Well, we have lots of overlap in the energies of everyone that's around us. We have lots of mixed vibrations where one person is in a lower vibration and won't match up to us, and others who might be in a higher vibration than we are. And so we find ourselves in a clash and sometimes in a shared reality because the energy around us is fluid, it moves all around us. We each have our own chronic emotional tone level. In other words, I tend to vibrate in a higher tone level of optimism, but there might be someone near me who's at a chronic tone level of resignation or ambivalence. So imagine that we're two partners at work with two different energies. What I want to create may not be what they'll be on board with, right? So what's the reality? Well, we have two different realities, don't we? Does this mean that there's disharmony? Well, I could lower my vibration just a little bit to meet them, or maybe find some harmony there. Or they could raise their emotional tone level just a little bit to reach my vibration. That's one possibility. But is that really what we want to do? Do we really want to change our own vibration? Well, it depends on what our objective is. And I always like to start with the objective. And you've heard me say it before that when someone comes to me and says, I'm feeling stuck, I always ask what their objective was. And most of the time they just say, uh, they don't really know what their objective was, which is probably why they're stuck. And this happens when there's no objective. I'm just saying. If our objective is to get along with others or to be accommodating or even to carry a cooperative energy, then allowing our energy to be more fluid might be productive. But what if our objective is to manifest a vision, to manifest a new reality? There could be a delay because of the other energies that exist between the two partners. Our reality may impact the other person in a positive or a negative way, just like their reality could impact us in a positive or a negative way. If we're going to resolve this imbalance, we might find ourselves in a position to ask, is this the time to surrender and go with the flow? Or is this a time to be an intentional creator? In other words, how can we balance the energy? Because do we really want to delay our vision, that thing that we want to manifest? Do we really want to see our vision watered down? Well, this is kind of a trick question. Well, not really a trick question, but a distinction. Because the question that we're posing in today's episode is whether the universe wants us to be an intentional creator or whether the universe wants us to surrender to destiny and what's meant to be. When we're involved with a partner at work or at home, now we've moved out of the ethers and into the more practical day-to-day. And fair warning, this practical day-to-day, this is the playground of ego. This is where ego thinking can really have a field day. And I think this may be why I get this question so much about whether to be an intentional creator or whether to surrender to what's meant to be. There's a lot of confusion there. So let me be clear. The confusion often lies between our now reality and the unseen reality. These are both realities, they're both very real, but there's confusion sometimes between what to do in our now reality, our physical world, and what to do where the unseen world is, which is our destiny. We get the two realities mixed up, and this is how we can sometimes get confusion. So when we're creating down here on this game board called life, we're dealing with physical world energies. And boy, we can get beat up here in the now reality. But when we're creating from up here in the ethers, up in the unseen reality, when we're using our thoughts to create things, we're on a completely different multidimensional game board. And this is why knowing our objective is so important. Is our objective to get along with people in the physical world, or is our objective to create something out of the ethers of the unseen world and work hand in hand to cooperate with destiny and what's meant to be? See the difference? We want to be clear whether we're playing with the physical world or if we're in the unseen world where destiny holds our future. All right, so let's move on. Let's stay out of the ethers for a minute where our future reality lives and talk about the now physical reality and where we are right now, as well as the other people who are around us. In this now reality of where we are right now, we can absolutely create what we want to experience in life. Let's say, for instance, that we're at work and we want to create a contest for high school students. And in this contest, the students can submit a video or an essay about why they want to start up their own business. And let's say that we want to give out a $1,000 cash reward to a winner every quarter, and they can use their money to go step into any business course they choose to help learn how to do a startup business. And in exchange, we want to go out and get free publicity about how our company is helping high school students learn about being an entrepreneur. We're helping the community and we're getting free publicity about our company. Can you kind of get this image? This now reality is that we're sitting in this company with this idea. And the unseen reality is that we want to bring this idea to fruition, and we don't know how it's going to turn out just yet. Well, as you can imagine, there might be some people at our company in our now reality who think it's a wonderful idea, and others in our company around us may think it's a complete waste of time and effort. All right, so you get this picture in your mind, right? We have this picture in our minds about this potential contest. So how does this idea of surrender versus intention work in this shared reality? We have our reality of what we want to create, and we have the shared reality of our coworkers. And then we have the unseen reality because our vision hasn't come yet to fruition. We don't know how it's going to turn out just yet. 3 different realities. Make sense? We have our reality of what we want to create, the shared reality between ourselves and our coworkers, and the unseen reality of what hasn't been created yet. In this situation, how does this concept of surrender versus intention, how does this play out in this particular plan that we're talking about? What happens to our abilities to be an intentional creator in the middle of this shared reality? Or do we now surrender and let things just be what they're meant to be? Well, this is where we want to be very clear about our objective. Is our objective to get along with others in our shared reality, or is our objective to be an intentional creator? We want to be very clear about our primary objective because intention is an interesting thing. Our personal reality can be filled with intentions of what we desire, like the example of this contest for high school students. But when we venture into the shared reality of others around us, our intentions may not have the same power because now they clash with the intentions of others. The 2 sets of intentions may be diametrically opposed, our intention and the intention of others. Does this mean that one person has to surrender? And if so, which one? Well, hang on to your hat because in actuality, this is the very battle that our ego loves to watch. Welcome to the now reality. And this is exactly why I'm suggesting to be very clear about objectives. Is our objective to be an intentional creator? Because if we haven't set that as a clear objective, our ego thinking will move in and tell us every reason why we can't meet our objective. And in our shared reality, if there are others who are poopy-headed, this can be the start of a downward spiral. And before we know it, our fabulous idea to help groom high school students into entrepreneurs is over before it's begun. Now, a little side note here. Do you remember me talking before about the question with regard to partnerships? We've talked about this in past episodes. Should I be in this partnership or should I not? And how that's the wrong question. That is a question of ego. It's a physical world, now reality question, and it's the wrong question. The right question is, how can I raise my vibration? In other words, how can I stay tuned in to a higher stream of consciousness? How can I stay tuned in to this energy of all-encompassing unconditional love? How can I stay tuned in to a perspective of spiritual growth? How can I stay tuned in to a bigger picture, one that serves a higher purpose? When we clash with our ego, or when we clash with another person or their ego, it's usually not about what we think we're clashing about. It's not about the clash about the contest with the high school students. It's almost always a clash in values, some kind of a mismatch. We have a vision, something that we want to create in the world, and there may be people around us who quite simply don't want to see us succeed. And so this mismatch, this disharmony, It's all about balancing our ability for intentional creation with the energy of allowing and aligning with what's meant to be. We're tuning into a higher stream of consciousness so that it can guide us toward success. And that's my secret tip of the day for this episode. Always follow the light. Don't ever follow the darkness of our own ego thinking or of others' ego or of the negativity of the naysayers. We want to always follow the light. There's a distinction in this energy that's around us, and we want to always follow the light. Let me say that again. We can try and create harmony in our now reality, or we can be in harmony with the unseen reality, which is where we can take our vision and bring it into manifestation. In cooperating with the light, in cooperating with the unseen forces of destiny, we're tuning into a higher stream of consciousness so that it can guide us toward success. All right. So we create our intention energetically first, and then we step back and allow it to come to fruition. And by the way, just a side note, you know that I'm such a fan of using mantras, and one of my favorites is that I'm open to possibilities even greater than I've imagined, because sometimes there is something bigger, brighter, and better than our own vision. This is why we want to step back and allow it to come to fruition in the best way possible. All right, now then, what gets in the way of our manifesting? Well, it's a common question. If I had a nickel for every time somebody said, I've tried everything and nothing's happening. What gets in the way of our manifesting is resistance. And the way we know if there's resistance on our now reality is by how we feel. The thing to look out for is if we begin to feel helpless or overwhelmed or exploited, any negative emotion that we feel, doubts, confusion, conflict, struggle, any negative emotion is a signal for us. It's an indicator that we've lost our spiritual center. We want to stay centered in the positive thoughts and emotions and energies. If we throw in the towel and surrender to these negative emotions, we're either being influenced by others' intentions or we're being influenced by our own ego thinking. It doesn't matter which one, really. The only thing that matters is to have our awareness heightened for any negative thoughts or emotions that might be around us. That's our signal. That's our indicator. And it's our invitation to take a moment to stop and recenter in our intentional creation. Because if we don't take a moment to do that, we're no longer cooperating with that thing that we want to manifest. We're no longer resonating with the vibration of what we're trying to create. We have to be intentional, and we have to hold our intention stable and steady. And we have to surrender or cooperate with the universal energies that are helping us. If we throw in the towel, or if we fall prey to these helpless or overwhelmed or negative feelings, we're calling in resistance. And the flow of life can't work with us because now there's resistance pushing it away. Now, why am I telling you this? We've certainly talked about resistance a million times before, and you've heard this before, I'm sure. It's not new. Here's the distinction and why I'm telling you. One of the reasons that I'm careful about the word surrender is because for me, and you may be the same way, but for me, sometimes when I use the word surrender, I'm doing it under protest. I'm surrendering under protest because I'm more of an intentional creator. I don't enjoy the surrender process. That's just my own nature. Surrendering doesn't bring me joy, right? Creating does. And so when I try and surrender, I'm often surrendering under protest. And protest is just a really heavy form of resistance. So I like to use the word cooperate rather than surrender. I like to cooperate with a higher stream of consciousness. That's just me because I have a lot of spiritual warrior energy inside me. And so I have to be careful with my sword. Now, I mention this just in case you're the same way. I have a lot of people who have told me that they carry the energy of a spiritual warrior ready to fight for whatever's right. And I've said it many, many times before, that being in the flow and being in surrender, it doesn't come as easy for me as it does for others. It's just not my greatest strength. But I can slip into cooperation super easy. It's a weird distinction, I know, but I've had a lot of people ask me about this. Some have trouble meditating. Some have trouble allowing. Some have trouble being in the flow. So for me, I can slip into cooperation. I can slip into alignment and aligning with the energies quite easily. I mean, this is part of our hidden power, knowing how to work with energies, right? So, by all means, do what works for you. If you're good with surrender, cool. If you find that cooperating or aligning comes easier for you, then do that. Find the word and the energy that works best for you, because we don't ever want to inadvertently create resistance. All right, so the task at hand is to understand our power of being an intentional creator. If we give up on ourselves, we're giving up on our intentions, and then we're living by default. We're living with limitations. We're repeating old patterns that may no longer serve us. We're living in disharmony because we're giving up on our vision or on the ability to create a vision. As we evolve, we learn how to align our intentions with the wholeness of life, and we cooperate with the energy of allowing. We're able to live life without indecision or angst or frustration. We're able to live and create in a more positive energy field of expression or vibrancy or inspiration. This power of intention is quite natural for us, and we understand the importance of showing love and compassion and patience to others around us. And what I mean by that is understanding that others may be at a different level of awareness, and that's okay. We're holding ourselves in a spiritually centered place of intention, and we're cooperating with a higher stream of consciousness to bring in possibilities greater than we've ever imagined. All right. So, one more thought here about the energy of surrender or the energy of cooperating with universal flow. I've mentioned before a couple times about the guy that I dated so long ago who was a big believer in let go and let God. And he had let go of so much of his life that he took no responsibility in his life at all. And sadly, anytime things didn't go right, he had a convenient way to blame his higher power. That letting go thing that he did, well, it looked like surrender, but is it really cooperating with the universe to do it that way? So I mention this because you may know someone who wishes that some higher power made their choices for them so they could just simply be passive. And that's often because they don't understand that we are here to realize our own hidden power, that we are creative vibrational beings who can use positive energies and positive thoughts to create what we want and bring it into physical manifestation. This is the part where the universe wants us to be intentional creators. It wants us to use these powerful positive energies and thoughts, but to also know when to step back and cooperate with these forces as our manifestations journey from the unseen world and materialize into our physical world. If a higher power took control of our life, it would defeat our opportunities for growth and expression. It's a matter of creating balance between intention and cooperating with universal forces, both intention and cooperation for what's meant to be. This requires positive thoughts and emotions. As we empower ourselves toward the self-expression for who we are at our core, without the negative emotions of ego, we're choosing a higher frequency, higher and better thoughts, because our choice of frequency, our choice of more positive emotions, changes the course of our journey. So, reflecting back on everything we covered today, how can you apply what you've learned? Did you hear anything insightful about understanding your power as an intentional creator and how to balance that with the energy of cooperating with the universal life force for what's meant to be? I hope this helps you as you're using the powers of alchemy to transform challenges and obstacles into positive new successes. This podcast is all about helping you have success on your spiritual growth journey. It's all about getting unstuck by unlocking your hidden power. If you still can't get your head around what's got you stuck, you can tell me about it. You can send me a question to questions@unlockyourhiddenpower.com, or you may not know that you can schedule a one-on-one session with your own personal unstuckologist, that's me, by visiting instantbreakthroughsession.com. This private session is designed to help you tap into your greatest resource, that's you, and together we can make quite a team toward calling in the transformational powers of alchemy. And our time together will uncover your single biggest stuck point, the one you probably can't see. And we'll also go over the most genius way to create clarity so you can just move forward while one obstacle after another is obliterated. And we'll create a strategy to get you moving in a really good direction, the one that's aligned with your life purpose. If this sounds like a match made in heaven, you can hop on over to instantbreakthroughsession.com right now and book the time slot that works best for you. Well, thanks for joining me today, and I'm wishing you a life filled with all the alchemy you need to bring success to you. Feel free to share this video with anyone you know who's feeling stuck, and I look forward to seeing you on the next episode.